and we have culture pushing in on us, and we need to reflect on the values. Lord, we pray that your presence would be here, your direction would be with us. We pray through Christ. Amen.
Thank you,
Bless you, brother.
Appreciate it. Well, good morning. It's good to be back with you again, and back in the book of Daniel. Which Daniel, most of the stories in Daniel are pretty well known, and it's a story that's very well told, and I mean, even children can understand what's going on in it and learn something from it. But generally, when things are really familiar, we tend, the danger is we don't read very carefully, we don't read closely, because we know what's going to happen. And I would ask you, as you're reading the scripture anywhere, but especially in something like Daniel, that you pretend you don't know. Like, all of this is new to you, and you have no idea what's going to happen next. Because if you do, it will surprise you. I think it's designed to surprise you, to make you think about what's happening. So we'll pretend like we're reading it for the first time. And someone asked me before the service, like, where's Daniel? Okay, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and not a mention of Daniel at all. And the answer is, nobody knows where Daniel was during this. It doesn't tell us. He was, at the end of chapter 2, he was going to be there in basically the palace. So why didn't he come out for this? I have no idea. The Jewish rabbi said because at the end of chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar bowed down and worshipped Daniel, that the Lord was angry that Daniel let him do that, and so exiled him from the country for a while. So he's out in the country somewhere while this is going on. That didn't happen. That was just their theory on why he didn't end up in this chapter, but he's not. So we're going to work through this. I'm just going to go through it a little bit at a time, and especially here at the beginning, I want to slow down and carefully think about what's happening here. What is this thing that they're talking about, and what are they doing at this great assembly? What is this thing for? Because depending on how you read that, will depend on how you read the rest of what's happening in this chapter. So it begins in verse 1. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So we're told that he has made this image, and that it's basically 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. So what is it exactly? And some people say, well, maybe it's an image of Nebuchadnezzar himself, that this is a statue of him. Kind of makes sense after chapter 2, because there's this image where he's the head of gold, and maybe he said, well, actually, I'm the whole thing, I'm gold. Problem with that is it's 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide, so it would look more like that. It would be a very strange proportions for a person's statue. So other people say, well, if it's 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide, maybe it's just an obelisk. It's just a big, tall tower. Maybe that's all it is. He never tells us exactly what this is an image of, just that it's an image. And if you read the chapter ahead of time, you probably noticed a couple of things. One is that there's a lot of repetition in this chapter, repetitions of lists and instruments of people. And the one thing you see about this image every time, except for once, it's mentioned 12 times, all but one of them, it is always the image that Nebuchadnezzar set up, the image that Nebuchadnezzar set up, the image that I made. Always that. That is the emphasis, and we will talk about that. So maybe it's not one of these. We don't know. So what might it be, and what might it be for, and what is this assembly for exactly? So then we're told about the assembling of these people. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, justices, magistrates, and officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So they come together. What is happening here exactly? So what is it? And some people think, well, maybe this is a god. This is a Babylonian god, and they've come out here. It's an idol that represents some god. And the word can mean that. The word image can mean that, and it's often used that way. But it doesn't have to mean that, and it doesn't always mean that. When we're told that man is made in the image of God, it's this word for image. It just means anything that represents something. Later on, it's going to be used of Nebuchadnezzar's face. It's called his image. It has a lot of different meanings. It doesn't mean idol by itself. So The other problem with that, understanding it as an idol, is that the Babylonians did not parade their gods out in public. They were always in temples. They wouldn't bring them out into a field for something. And so, again, just like the Jews had a temple and, the Holy of Holies is there, it doesn't move around. So it seems unlikely that they would do something like that. They're not known to have done that. The text never mentions a god or anything religious at all. There are no priests mentioned. There are no temple personnel. There are no prophets. There are no cult singers. There are no sacrificial attendants. There's no consecration rituals. There's no sacrifices. There's no prayers. They're not commanded to believe anything or pray anything or to sacrifice anything. This is just a ceremony run by imperial officials for imperial officials. Okay, so if it's not an idol, what is it? And this follows chapter 2. And in chapter 2, he has this dream, and there's this statue, and it's got a head of gold. So some people think that what's happening here is he's like, I reject your interpretation of what's going to happen, and my statue is going to be destroyed. I'm going to build my own statue, and it's going to be all gold. And he's kind of protesting against what was done there. So it does seem to be some kind of reaction of what happened in chapter 2. But again, the thing that's all important is he set it up. That's the thing that gets repeatedly here. In that case, this whatever this image is, it represents kind of the imperial ideology itself. Not a person necessarily or God. It represents him. And so the audience is administrative officials. The people are not there for this. It only lists civil, kind of administrative, imperial, political officers. In other words, these are all government employees who've been invited to that. And there's this hierarchy of officials, the satraps who report to the king, the prefects who report to the satraps, the governors who report to the prefects, and a whole bunch of lower-level kind of provincial servants are there. But that's it. One thing we do know is that it is the image that Nebuchadnezzar set up. That's what is important about it. That's what the focus on it. It's his. In some way, it represents him. And he is the focus of it. It represents his power. So to disrespect it is to disrespect him. I think that's the important thing to understand about this image. Okay, so what's this gathering for then? Well, again, whatever this image is, it is, again, officials from all over the province of every ethnicity and every administrative level. They're there to perform this act of loyalty across the empire. It's a political loyalty test. It's about uniformity. There's no persuasion going on. It's just coercion. Do this or else. And it's a very small act that he's asking of them. So we don't know what this image looks like, which means we don't need to know what it looks like. But we are told it is this symbol of, it's him. It represents him and his power, because he put it there. And so it's associated with him. And the purpose of this is to bring all these people together for empire-wide unity, to show that. Okay, so he brings that. He brings them together. And if you notice these repetitions of the counselors, the satraps, the prefects, why keep repeating all of that? One of the things that you'll notice throughout this chapter is repeated constantly is Nebuchadnezzar will say, do something to a group of people. And then we're told specifically that exact group of people did exactly what they were told to do. He repeats the same words usually, exactly. So the emphasis is on what Nebuchadnezzar said to do this, everybody does it. There's this immediate, unthinking, mechanical obedience. He tells a group to do it, the group does it. He tells a person to do it, the person does it. And it just keeps happening throughout the chapter. And it's like a high-stakes game of Simon Says, except it's Nebuchadnezzar says. And if you fail at Nebuchadnezzar says, you are out of the game permanently. So everybody does exactly what they're told and exactly the way they're told to do it every time. And we're told they do it immediately. They always do what they're told immediately. So what are they told here? Let me get this proclamation. And the herald proclaimed aloud, you are commanded, O peoples, nations, languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Okay. So again, people from all of these nations and languages, because again, he has invaded nations and taken their best people captive to come and work for him, like Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. They come from all over this place, and they're there. They represent all the conquered peoples that he has brought together there to serve him. They're all servants of him. So he brings them together, and then we're told, when you hear, again, immediately, when you hear this, you need to do this. They're being trained to respond automatically without the burden of thinking about it. Just do it. When you hear this, do it. And you think, well, that's like a really strange ceremony. Like, why would anyone do that? It's not strange at all. Happens all the time. Every country, every empire has these rituals of allegiance where we show that we're part of the unified people. And you say, well, does it really happen that much? It happens hundreds of times every day in America. If you go to a baseball game, the music starts playing, everybody stands up, they turn and face the flag, they take their hat off, they put it over their head, and they start singing a song that they don't remember the words to, they don't really like. They sing it anyway because that's what you're supposed to do. And literally, we are trained to do that automatically without thinking it. That's just what you do. And if you don't do it, you will really stand out. That's the point of that kind of ceremony, to pressure you into being part of it, because you don't want to be the oddball who's not participating in it. So yes, it happens all the time. We go back then again to all of these instruments. Like, why does he keep listing all of these instruments? Why list them at all? Why not just say them when the band plays? Probably it's there to kind of impress people. This is an extravaganza as far as ancient music goes. It's pomp, it's ceremony. Like, this is a big deal. And he's brought out the orchestra to make it even more impressive for everybody. So he keeps emphasizing that. He says, okay, when you hear it, you have to fall down and worship. Now, fall down and worship, always come together. Only one place is it worship by itself. It's always fall down and worship. Which people hear the word worship, you tend to think, oh, so it is a god, it's a religious thing. The word worship doesn't mean that. It just literally means to bow down. In chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar worships Daniel. He just bowed in front of him. In the Old Testament, that word is used of men, people bowing to other men, to kings regularly. The same word. David bowed to Saul, same word. Bathsheba bows to David. Saul bowed to Samuel. Jacob bowed to Esau. Ruth bowed to Boaz. Sons of the prophets bowed to Elisha. Obadiah bows before Elijah. Same word for worship, but they're not worshiping anybody. It just means to bow to somebody. That's all it means. And so he's just telling you, when you see this, you bow down in front of this image, whatever it is. He says, and whoever does not bow down and worship immediately is going to be thrown into this burning, fiery furnace. Okay, what kind of furnace could that possibly be? Probably talking about a beehive furnace, which they did use as kind of lime kilns back then. They're large. These are not from Babylon. These are actually, I think, from Native Americans. But this is what it would look like, kind of a big beehive. It'd have a hole on top and a front door, maybe multiple doors. So it's a very large thing. Inside, they can be very large. You can see this one. It's got multiple entrances, and it's huge. So yeah, a lot of people could walk around inside of one of these if they had to. So we're not talking about a tiny little furnace somewhere. These are very large things that you could fit people into if you wanted to. He says you're going to be thrown into one of these things if you don't do this immediately, as soon as you hear it. So then we're told that okay, they comply. Therefore, as soon as, we get that, again, mindless, automatic obedience. As soon as all the peoples heard the sound of all of these instruments, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Nebuchadnezzar says it, everybody does it immediately without question. It says all did it. We're about to find out they did not all do it. So if you're reading this for the first time, you might think, oh, it worked. He got what he wanted. Everybody did it. Then you find out, okay, not exactly. Some people didn't do it. There are some who did not participate. So then you get this accusation from others who were there. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of all the musical instruments shall fall down and worship the golden image, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of Babylon, affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. So again, as soon as this happens and they see that these men don't bow, these Chaldeans, and if you remember back to chapter 2, that's the group that Daniel saved from death. They were going to be executed. And he said, no, don't execute them. He saved them. They're not going to return that favor for anybody. They're like, we're going to get these guys. And so they came forward and maliciously accused. The word there literally means they ate the pieces of. We would say they chewed them up. And they aren't lying. They're telling the truth. They didn't do it. But they're not like the principled preservers of law and order within the empire. These guys are predators. Like they really want to devour somebody. And they're going to use this as an opportunity to do it. And they start by calling them, there's certain, they begin by, O king, live forever. And we got this expression, we're loyal. We are the ones who are loyal to you. And then they repeat verbatim this long decree, word for word. We want to tell you what the decree was. Well, Nebuchadnezzar is probably thinking, I know what the decree was. I'm the one who just had it said. You don't have to repeat this to me. So why are they repeating it? You know, if you have kids, you might be familiar with this. When you tell them, hey, if you do that, we will do this, they come back and like, remember when you said, if you do A, B, and C, we will do this. I'm going to remind you of what you said to box you in, because now you have to do it, because you did say it and you know you said it. That's what they're doing to him. Like, we want to remind you what the decree was. This is what you said, so now you have to do it, because that's what you said. And so he starts by saying, look, these guys, these Jews, so they start by talking about their ethnicity. Clearly they don't like them being these foreigners there. It says, you have appointed them. So it's kind of almost like a professional jealousy here. Look, you appointed them. You didn't appoint us to it. You appointed them to it. And so, those guys that you appointed, they have refused to do this, O king. They don't pay any attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image. This is the first mention of gods in the text. And every time they're mentioned, it's always that they're Nebuchadnezzar's gods. Your gods, your gods. He says, my gods. So it's a personal affront to him that they won't do this, because they're your gods. And you might say, well, wait a minute. So it is about worshiping. This is some kind of god that they're supposed to do. But if you notice, it says they don't serve your gods or bow down to this image. There are two different things going on here. There's the bowing down to the image, and there's the serving the gods, and they're not the same thing. So they're also trying to bring into it, hey, not only did they not bow down to your image, but they don't worship your gods either. So these guys are a double problem. And so he says, they make this accusation, and then Nebuchadnezzar brings them in to interrogate them, and he asks them two questions. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought them, these men, before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the musical instruments, fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall be immediately cast into the burning fiery furnace. Who is the God that will deliver you out of my hands? So he says, once again, he says, bring them. They brought them. Everybody does exactly what they're told immediately throughout this chapter. And then he brings them before it, and he asks them two questions. The first one, is it true that you don't serve my gods or worship the golden image? Is it true that you're not going to bow down like I said? So that's his first question. Then he says something really surprising. Okay, they said we didn't do it, or they've been accused of not doing it, and they didn't do it, so we would expect, okay, now they get thrown into a furnace. And they don't. He says, now I love this, if you're ready. I don't know if that's being sarcastic, or if he's like, maybe you didn't hear the first time, maybe you didn't understand. So if you're ready now, here's what you're going to do when you hear the music play. Why is he giving them a second chance? He told them, do it or you get thrown in. Now he's like, well, I'm going to give you a second chance. So if you're ready, when this happens, here's what you're going to do. And it's interesting, again, he's a tyrant, he's a maniacal tyrant, and he's really bad at promising people things. We saw this earlier in a chapter where he's like, okay, if you do this, well, something good will happen, but if you don't, I'm going to tell you exactly how I'm going to hurt you, and it's going to be really bad. Here, he says, if you hear it and then you fall down, now the ESV says well and good. If you have the King James Version, it just says well in italics, because it's not there. They've added the word to try to make a little more sense out of it. He doesn't say anything. He says, okay, if you bow down in front of it, like he doesn't even know what to say. Like, I don't know, whatever, something will happen. But if you don't, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. You are going to be thrown into a fiery furnace, and what God's going to be able to deliver you? How is that going to happen? That's the second question that he asks them. Who's going to be able to deliver you from this when that happens? Of course, he assumes the answer is nobody. There is no way that will happen. So again, why give them a second chance? Just do away with them. And this is the important point. The whole purpose of this is to show unity. We all love, serve, and obey Nebuchadnezzar. So yes, he could kill them, but then it looks bad for him. It embarrasses him. Like, okay, but not everybody would do it, and I had to kill some of them. It's much better if everybody just complies. If I can just get everybody to comply, I can say, look, see, empire-wide unity, everybody agrees. Everybody follows me and does what I say. So it's much better for him if they would just go ahead and comply rather than do away with them. So he gives them the second opportunity. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. So they start by answering the second question, who's going to be able to deliver you? And they start off, interestingly, again, this is a great contrast to everything we've seen in the first 15 verses where he says it, it's done. He says it, it's done. He says it, it's done. Now it's not going to happen that way. They're not going to do that. And they say, oh, Nebuchadnezzar, which is really unusual because he's King Nebuchadnezzar, and he's always called King Nebuchadnezzar. And they just say, Nebuchadnezzar. Now, some people read that as disrespectful, like, hey, look, Nebuchadnezzar, we're going to tell you the truth. Probably what they're just trying to do is just let him know, remind him, you're just a man. You're just a guy named Nebuchadnezzar. We obey God. We don't obey men. No matter what your position in this world, Nebuchadnezzar, you're still just a man. And so we're not going to obey you rather than God. And they said, we have no need to answer. And so, again, people read that as kind of like almost disrespectful. We don't have to answer you. We're not required to. Probably what this means is like we don't need to like provide a defense because I mean we did it, so we're not going to tell you that we have some defense to this. We did not do what you told us to do, and our actions speak for us. You don't need us to say something. We don't need to answer what you've got to say. But they then say, if it be so, that our God whom we serve is able to deliver. It almost sounds like if God's able to deliver us. We're not quite sure if he is or not, but if he is, then he will. Probably what it means is if he chooses to do it. If our God decides he's going to deliver us from this, then he'll deliver us from this. And then, but the next section says, but if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. So their answer now to the first question, will you do it? And they say, even if he doesn't deliver us, which he might not, he might not be willing to do that. So again, their refusal to do this is not contingent on, oh, I'm going to be delivered. The Lord's going to see us through this. They're going to do it anyway, whether they're delivered or not, even if there's no happy ending. So faith can acknowledge that there are other contingencies. Other things might happen. It might not turn out the way you want to, even if you're hoping that it does. So he says, look, even if he doesn't deliver us, we're not going to do this. So the question is, they don't explain why. Why are they not doing this? They don't say, and here's why we're not going to do it. So why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they bow down in front of this image of this thing that represents his power, no matter what it is? And I think there's a hint to that, another way of seeing this, in another text in the Old Testament where this happens, because these are the only two texts where this actually happens. In Esther, when Mordecai won't bow, so I won't read the whole thing, but essentially the king elevates Haman and says, okay, everybody will bow in homage to Haman, and Mordecai won't do it. He's like, nope, I'm not going to bow. And of course, that makes some people very upset, mainly Haman. And so they ask him at the end, in order to see whether Mordecai's words would stand, for he had told them he was a Jew. I won't do it because I'm a Jew. So something about being a Jew prevented him from bowing to this guy. Again, it's not bowing to a human because they did it all the time. They bowed to their own kings all the time. It's something about a foreign king. Like we can't acknowledge you as the ultimate authority here. That's different than bowing to our own kings who serve under our God. But this is different, and we are not going to do that. So in the two stories where people are ordered to bow in front of a foreign ruler, they said, no, we just can't do it because we're Jews, then we don't do that. So they again refuse. So, as you can imagine, Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it usually heated, and he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. The expression of his face, that's that word image again. His image is now changed. He's unhappy. He's filled with rage and fury again. He's always filled with rage and fury. Anytime somebody doesn't do what he wants, he just goes apoplectic over it. And he's angry, so angry, he makes this irrational demand. Heat the furnace 7 times hotter. Like that's going to kill them even more than just throwing them into a normal. I want them really, really dead. So make it really, really hot. They're going to die no matter what. So, and from what I understand from my research into these kind of, they couldn't, especially back then, make them 7 times hotter. They wouldn't know how. It probably, again, number 7 often in the Bible means completion. Probably what he's saying is, make it as hot as you can possibly make it. Once again, that's irrational. They're not going to be more dead by doing that. It's not more punishment by throwing them into a 3,500-degree oven versus a 500-degree oven. You die either way. So he's just so angry he's issuing these commands that show just how irrationally angry he is at this point. So that's what he wants, and it makes him look foolish. And so he orders these mighty men to bind him up and throw them in. And so, as you would expect, these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace was overheated, the flame of fire killed these men who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. So again, once he orders them, do this, they do this. Everybody else does exactly what they're told all the time. And so it tells them they were bound. Why mention their clothing? Like, what does it matter what they were wearing when they were thrown in? Probably, there are no useless details in the Bible. There's no fluff added in there just to make it interesting. It means something if it's there. So why are we told what they were wearing? Probably here it's to emphasize the haste, because normally in the ancient world, if someone's going to be executed, they're stripped and their clothes are taken from them. Think of Jesus at his crucifixion. Because in the ancient world, clothes were incredibly expensive and valuable. You're not going to go burn up a good pair of clothes. So normally that would happen. But here they didn't even take time to do that. It's like, no, right now, just pick them up and throw them in. There is no time for preparation. Just do it. Throw them in. And so they do. And again, because the king was saying, do it right now, hurry up, the guys doing it, they were not thinking of safety precautions either. They just picked them up, went up there, and dropped them in. And they died because it was so hot. And it says it was overheated. Not that it was 7 times hotter, but just it was really, really hot. And it killed them. And if it killed them standing outside of the furnace, surely it's going to kill the people thrown into the furnace. So if this is, you can't argue, well, it wasn't that hot. Yes, it was, because the people on the outside died from it. So it's going to take a miracle for them not to die inside of there. And so there is an interesting thing, though, in verse 23. After these 3 men fell bound. And there's a little bit of a hint here. For one thing, remember, throughout this book, they've been ordered fall and bow, fall and bow, fall and bow, fall. And they're like, we're not going to fall and bow. So he's like, fine, then you're going to fall and burn. Now they finally fall, not of their own choosing. They're made to fall this time. But in the Old Testament, the word fall is used all the time for a violent death, usually in battle. Saul fell on the battlefield. How are the mighty fallen, we're told in 2 Samuel. The army fell before their enemies. Fall means to die violently. And so, again, if we're reading this for the first time, you might read this and say, oh, they died. They fell. So they're dead. The king got what he wanted. So it makes the surprise for the king and for us even more when we then read next. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? They answered and said to the king, true, O king. He answered and said, but I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of 4th was like a son of the gods. So he says, he gets up and he looks in, again, through the kind of doorway that would be there. And I find this statement funny. Didn't we cast them in? No, we did not. The people who did died. You ordered them to do it, but you didn't cast anybody in. But didn't we cast them in? And they're like, yeah. And he said, well, how come I'm seeing 4 of them walking around in there and they're not hurt? And he says, the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. I think the King James translates it, the Son of God. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was not having some Christological revelation right now that, oh, this is the Christ, the Son of God. Any pagan at that time would say that there are sons of the gods who do things, and they come, and maybe they're like angels or something. So it wouldn't be unusual for someone like that to say so. He sees some being which is clearly supernatural. This is not just some guy who wandered into this oven. He knows this has to be supernatural because only 3 went in, and there's 4 in there. So whatever this thing is, it's supernatural. Now, we, from our perspective, will know what he's talking about when he says that. But he wouldn't have understand that that's what's going on. And so he says, what happened? And then he's like, then Nebuchadnezzar came near the door of the burning fiery furnace. He declared, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire. For the first time, they willingly obey Nebuchadnezzar. He says, come out. And you're like, yes. And they come out. And they do as they are told for the first time. Now, he says, servants of the Most High God. Again, would not be unusual for a pagan to say they believed there were lots of gods, but there was one who was like the one, the highest over all of them. And so he can't identify who this God is, but he is now thinking, well, this must be the highest one if he was able to do this. So they serve this highest God. And so they finally come out. Then the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire came upon them. Gathered together. If you remember way back at the beginning of this chapter, the king ordered these people to be gathered together. They were gathered together to witness this spectacle of awe that Nebuchadnezzar is the supreme ruler and we are all loyal to him. That's what that's what he gathered them together for. Now it turns out that the Lord gathered them together actually for something else entirely. They were actually gathered together to see the Lord's power over Nebuchadnezzar, that Nebuchadnezzar is not the ultimate authority, that the Lord is. So that's what's happening here. They were gathered together for an entirely different reason than Nebuchadnezzar thought they were being gathered together. Then Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who had sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own. Therefore, I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruins. For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. So now he's impressed by what has happened. And he says, this this God that has done this, that has rescued them like nobody else could, he sent a servant, his angel, to do this, to deliver them. And he kind of maybe accidentally sums up pretty much the point of this. They trusted God. They set aside the king's command. They didn't obey when they couldn't. And they were willing to take the consequences for it. So he understood that that's what was happening in this chapter, and said, but they weren't going to do that. And so now he's like, okay, fine. Now I'm going to be on that God's side. And so he makes this decree. And so clearly he has not learned. He has not changed at all. Because he's saying, now I'm going to use my lethal power to kill people for the Lord. And he still wants the same godlike control over people. I get to determine who lives, who dies, and I will crush you. Now I'm telling you, if you don't worship their God, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to tear you limb from limb and lay your house in ruins. Again, all he understands is coercive power. Like, how do I get you to worship their God? I know. I'm going to tear you apart if you don't. There. So now I'm serving that God. He still doesn't understand the Lord. And then where the chapter ends, then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So now they're promoted after this. Not only did they not die, now they're promoted to higher positions. So that's what happens in this chapter. So what exactly is going on here? Like, what is it teaching us exactly? Or as someone once said, what does Daniel 3 do to you when you read it? Like, what is it supposed to do to you when you've read this? And I would say, first of all, what I really want to make clear first, what it doesn't do, it's not promising deliverance. Okay? He doesn't always deliver the faithful, and this is not saying that. What happens here is really extraordinary. It's incredibly rare. It's miraculous. There's no promise that this is always going to happen. The vast majority of faithful believers throughout history have not been delivered from death. They have died. Think of all the Anabaptist martyrs, especially the ones who died by fire. Michael Sattler, Balthasar Hubmaier. Is it Hubmaier? I don't know how to pronounce it. Either way, George Blaurock, they burned to death. There was no miraculous deliverance for them. And it usually isn't. It happened in this chapter because it's incredibly rare that it happens. It can happen, but it's really, really rare. Think of the apostles, almost all of whom died violent deaths for their faith. They were not delivered from that. Think of all the countless martyrs throughout church history. They're not delivered. This was an amazingly extraordinary thing, which is why it's in the Bible and why people remember it, because it happened this way. So Daniel 3 is not a promise that you're always going to be delivered if you're faithful. Okay, so what is it teaching us then? One is that it always makes us question what our ultimate allegiance is exactly. Who's it to? Whatever this thing represented, this image, its function was clear. It's about a public declaration of allegiance. It's a visible, kind of synchronized, enforced demand for unity. And that's what you're going to do. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego don't. They refuse. They're not refusing the idea of government, because they work in it. They're not calling for a revolt against anybody. They're just refusing their ultimate allegiance to a human ruler. That we cannot do. And so, also then, what is the proper response then? If okay, this is something I cannot do. Well, again, they don't organize, they don't protest, they don't appeal to their rights, they don't attempt regime change. They just refuse. And their refusal is quiet. They're not screaming about it. They're just quietly saying, we can't do this. And it's nonviolent, and it's non-negotiable. They're like, we're not even going to bother getting into an argument with you about this. We're not going to do it. And it's grounded in trust. They say, our God is able to deliver us. And maybe the most important words in the chapter, but even if he does not. Okay, even if he doesn't, this is what we're going to do. It's up to him whether he delivers us, but we're going to do this no matter what. And that really is the heart of Daniel 3. Its faithfulness isn't validated by survival. It's validated by trust. And so faithfulness does not begin by calculating the odds of survival. What are my odds of getting through this? It's just by determining this is where my allegiance is. Okay, great. So what does this mean for us? One, where is the music playing in our lives? For us, the music is rarely actual, literal music. It's usually cultural and social, maybe professional pressures put upon us. It is, where are we being trained to respond without thinking? And where do we obey and it just feels automatic because we're just doing it because we've been told to do it? For us, the music might sound like this is just how things work, or everyone does this, or don't overthink it, or this isn't the hill to die on, or you don't want to be that person. That's what the music might sound like for us. The danger is not that the music is loud, it's that it's familiar. And if it plays often enough, we just stop noticing that the music is playing. And that can very easily happen. So we have to slow down and look for the cues that, we're being pressured to automatically just accept and do something, which maybe we shouldn't. It may not be demanded, but it's just been trained into us. This is what we do. And so that's the music that might play in our lives. Okay, what bow is expected of us? For us, it is rarely bow down, but more likely it's going to be something like, hey, don't make waves, don't make a big deal about this. It's like taking a stand means that you're going to be seen, and so we try to find ways to not be seen. And we might choose to be silent rather than say the truth about something. Or conform instead of just saying, no, this is my conviction, I can't conform to that. Or loyalty to your career or your nation or your reputation or anything other than God. And so we might laugh along with something we know we shouldn't be laughing to. We might avoid harsh truth because we want to preserve harmony. And we feel like that's what we really need to do. And where we soften claims about what Christ's lordship looks like. And so that's the kind of bow that is expected of us when we hear the music playing now. So what would faithfulness cost us? For now, it is not bow or burn. Okay, we're not going to face that. Most of us will never face that under any circumstances. What we do face is bow or don't eat, bow or be excluded. The furnace is not fire. It looks like maybe losing work, losing business, losing status, losing friends, losing family, being told if you don't play along, there's no place for you here. That's the kind of cost now that we face for being faithful. So Daniel 3 gives us this paradigm of non-resistant dissidence. Like we dissent from this. We can't do it. It's simply to obey God rather than man, even when it's going to cost you everything. So faithfulness begins by settling the question of allegiance. Who is my ultimate allegiance to? So I end with the question we started with. What will you do when the music plays? It's going to play. So are you going to be faithful, or are you going to simply give in so as not to have to face the consequences? Don't bow. Pay the cost. It is worth it. Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for this chapter that helps us to understand the kind of forces at work in the world that want us to conform and to give our allegiance to anyone other than you. And we face smaller pressures, different costs. But the dynamic is the same now as it was then, and we can learn from this chapter what it means to take a stand, to not bow, and to be willing to take the price, to pay the price for our allegiance to you. So Lord, I just pray that when the music starts, that we will be firm in our convictions as these three men were. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.